So, good day everyone. Today we're going to discuss about managing the internal audit function. So by now, kabalo na jud ta what is internal audit function is, di ba? Kay discuss na jud siya from kanang past reports and sa last year pud nato sa ato ERM. Nga natin overview what is internal audit is. So, para sa overview, di ba ang internal audit, it is an independent kanang objective kanang maghatag siya assurance or consulting sa isak organizations to be able to add value. Kanang unsa gani nato pag add value kanang magkuanta nga makahatag tag evaluations nga ug ma-improve pa nila ang ilahang risk management, ang ilahang control and as well as their governance processes. So karon mo ni ang learning objectives nga ato ang mabalaan ani nga topic. So first is understand the importance of proper positioning of the internal audit functions within the organizations, identify the benefits of various organizational structure of an internal audit function, identify the rules and responsibilities of the key positions in an internal audit functions, understand the policies and procedures of the internal audit and how they guide the internal audit function, understand the attributes of a well-executed risk management model or process, and reflect on what role the internal audit function should have in the organization's risk management processes, understand quality assurance, how it operates and why it is important to the internal audit function, and lastly, understand how technology is used in the management of internal audit function. So first, let us discuss about the positioning of the internal audit functions within the organization. So there is a broad spectrum jud of opinions with regards to aha jud ibutang ang isa ka internal audit function. And kani kay na broad spectrum because of course kanang naman sila gina-conform, which is the IIA's International Standards for the Professional Practice of Internal Auditing. So sa kadako sa idea, aha jud nila ibutang ang isa ka internal audit, ang isa ka kuan, ang uban organizations is kanang ginabutang nila ang internal audit functions sa senior management nga level. Why so? Kay para mahatagan nila kuan to give function sa internal audit na nasa visibility, of course authority, and at the same time responsibility. Responsibility to what? First is to independently evaluate the management assessment of the organization system of internal control, and otro pag maka-access to the organization's ability to achieve business objectives and manage, monitor, and mitigate risk associated with the achievement of those objectives. So, diri mura ginahatagan nila authority ang isa ka internal audit kay di pa the higher the position you have, the higher the authority is. And if you have the higher authority, mas makakuan jud nimo ang imuha independence and objectivity. Kay wala man ka part sa mga sa ilaha daily operations, tama ka sa taas-taas, murag mas ma-enhance nimo, ma-maximize nimo imuha rule to add value since tama ka sa senior management level and maka-report man ka directly sa board. And on the other hand, pod, ang uban ng mga organizations kay murag wala nila nakitang importansya sa isa ka internal audit, mao nang ginabutang pod nila ang internal audit sa much lower in the organizational hierarchy, typically assigning them to non-audit activities to perform on a day-to-day basis such as quality assurance, compliance, operational and other transactions processing activities. So unsay mahitabo if appeal ang internal audit sa day-to-day operations, di ba? Kay since independent man dapat ang internal audit, what will happen to the insight nga may hatag niya sa mga recommendations kung siya mismo is parts operations. So naay possibility nga ma-impartial ang iyaha rule or makuan kanang masubok iyaha independence and objectivity. Kay di ba according jud sa IIA's definition sa internal audit, it is an independent and objective to give assurance and consulting. So kung makuan ang kanang independence and objectivity, murag dili kuan tatag jud ang imuha rule as an internal audit. And that's why many organizations have positioned the internal audit function as a senior management activity to report directly to the board. And organizations that continue to position the internal audit functions to perform primarily operations and other non-audit activities are previously mentioned essentially render the functions unable to provide management with an evaluation of the design and effectiveness of risk management, control, and governance processes because they may lack objectivity again or independence. So, kaning mga organizations nga nag-recognize the importance sa pag-place internal audit in the higher positions para ma-maximize ang ilang effectiveness, kaya nagtatagpod sila kuan sa standard, nagkuan sila kuan nga KAE, which is the Chief Audit Executive, na mention naman jud na sa last. So kaning Chief Audit Executive ang iha trabaho baya kay mag-overlook sa tanang internal audit activity to ensure nga naka-add jud sila value sa organizations. So recognizing that the KAE is pivotal to the success in the internal audit functions, kay mao ni ang mga kuan para ma-effectively manage siya. First, the result of the internal audit function work achieve the purpose and responsibility included in the internal audit charter. Ang internal audit charter, i-discuss natin sa next slide. Dili sa nato ikuan. So basically, basta overview niya kay mo yung mga trabahoon sa isa ka internal audit, dili ang mabutang. Next is the internal audit function conforms with the standards, of course, and the individuals who are part of the internal audit function demonstrate conformance with the code of ethics and the standards. Kabalo naman dito sa code of ethics, i-discuss namin sa chapter 1. And then, the internal audit activity considers trends and emerging issues that could impact the effectiveness of the internal audit functions. Dapat kabalo mo sa ongoing ng mga events within sa organizations nga part mo. So, karon i-discuss na nato unsa jud ning internal audit charter para mabuhat nitong ninyong past na kung i-discuss katong mga para ma-effectively manage siya. Kailangan sa ninyo ikuan unsa ang internal audit charter. So, kani siya kay ma-establish ang internal audit nga charter sa isang organizations para mabalaan nimo kung unsa ang kanang authorities sa isa ka internal audit kung saan niya authorizes access sa records sa mga personal and physical properties relevant to the performance of engagement and defines the scope of internal audit activity. Para kabalo mo sa purpose, sa authority, and og sa responsibility sa isa ka internal audit. Makabutang na siya dito as internal audit function. Mura siya audit manual ganing niya. And kaning nasa kilid mo niya picture which is nakabutang iya mga mission og mga purpose niya, authority, and etc. So, importante na ma-recognize ang internal audit functions kay para kabalo ang internal audit unsa ang iya scope, aha siya taman, unsay mga authority nga niya na iya nga nasa iya, unsay mga kuan niya siya nang dapat buhaton. And then, di ba nakabutang diri ang internal audit charter is a formal written document that defines the internal audit functions, purpose, authority, and responsibility. The internal audit charter is subordinate to the audit committee's charter. Why so? Because naapod own nga charter ang audit committee. However, so kanang para mag-guide ang two rules kibali ang internal audit ug ang audit committee para kabalo sila kung sa ilaha kanang separate rules ug para makakuan po nilang ilang independencies of the two. So under siya kay ay kuan siya subordinate kay dapat ang audit committee's charter ug internal audit charter ay and dapat gi-support nila ang isa't isa nga mga rule ug dapat di sila mag-contradict. So next slide is kani siya mao ni ang recommendations for establishing the internal audit charter. Pwede ra ninyo basahon mo ni i-haric ko recommendations sa internal audit charter. So next kani gibalik-balik naman dyan na-discuss kani individual objectivity. So unsa man na, it is an unbiased mental attitude that allows internal audit to perform engagement in such a manner that they have an honest belief in their work product and that no significant quality compromises are made. Ug unsa pa ang objectivity, of course, it requires the internal auditors not to subordinate their judgment on the audit matters to the others. Kabalo naman dito ani kay kapila na siya gibalik-balik. So now is organizational independence. Diri akay the chief audit executive line of reporting within the organizations that allows the internal audit functions to fulfill its responsibility free from interference. Na siya kanang bisag part sa isa ka organizations nagihapon siya independence sa iha self ug nga dili siya mahilabtan or under sa influence sa lain. Next is proficiency and due professional care. So diri akay we know what is proficiency, diba? It is the knowledge, skills, and other competencies internal auditors need to perform the individual responsibilities. Kailangan kabalo ka kung sa dapat nimo buhatan as an internal audit o dapat proficient ka para ma-maximize ko imong effectiveness as an internal auditor. Next is due professional care. Internal auditor must apply the care and skills expected of a responsibility prudent internal auditor. However, internal auditors are not expected to be infallible. Kaya of course, we are humans, we are prone to make mistake, but kanang di ba ang doktor gani kay bisag doktor na mamali paghapon, of course as an internal auditor mamali gihapon ta, but kabalo taon sa una to pagtama ka tong mamali na di na siya mautro. Now I'm going to discuss about planning. So diri sa planning, kuan gihapon siya, work siya sa internal audit, gina-develop siya sa internal audit function. So through a process that identifies and prioritizes possible audit entities like business units or process referred to as the audit universe responsible for mitigating key strategic operations, reporting, and compliance risk to levels acceptable to the organization's board of directors and senior management. So unsay ginabuhat diri sa internal audit sa internal audit functions with regards to planning. So dili gina-identify nila tanan nga risk within the organizations and gi-identify nila ang key risk that are those confronting the organizations that must be controlled and monitored for the organizations to successfully accomplish its defined business objective. Ginakuan nila ni nga mga risk nga mo fit ra siya sa acceptable nga level nga kaya i-take sa isa ka organizations. Diri ang risk ay identify siya sa senior management and dapat kay independently corroborated siya by the internal audit functions. So after na maka-identify og mga key risk kay ang KAE, i-determine niya which specific business units and process are responsible for mitigating this risk. Ang the resulting information is then subject to the process for mitigating the priorities and ranks the key risk and associated business units of the process. Ang kani, gina-consider sa KAE ang mga information and determines the human and financial resources necessary to provide appropriate audit coverage for the audit universe. So, sa audit universe, sila ang compilation of the subsidiaries, business units, departments, groups, processes, or other established subdivisions of an organizations that exist to manage one or more risk. Mulag sa ilaha ginakuan ang balang mga key risk nga na-identify o ginakuan sa mga audit universe kung sila mo bagay para ma-mitigate siya. Sa planning is after nga ani, di ba ginahatag na nila sa appropriate nga audit universe ang mga na-identify nila nga risk. Ang the result is a comprehensive internal audit plans that includes both the assurance services and the consulting services necessary to assess how effectively the identify risk management improve the opportunities and how the organization is managing the risk that threaten its business objectives. So, unsa ning audit plan? Ang audit plan is an outline of the specific assurance and consulting engagements scheduled for a period of time, typically 1 year based on the assessment of the organization's risk. So, kaning audit plan kay gina-implement ni and assign resource to execute the internal audit plan throughout the fiscal year, pero gina-update siya kanang quarterly or monthly, depende sa isa ka organization. So ang audit plan can then be implemented by assigning specific personnel to individual engagement in the plan over the following year. So ang ginabuhat diri kay many internal audit functions have moved toward a comprehensive process whereby senior management and internal audit function collaborate to complete a formal risk assessment in the organization-wide basis to establish a prioritized list of key risk scenarios facing the organizations that must be appropriately managed by the organization to achieve key business objective. Mo na ginakuan sa planning. So the IIA addresses the difference between assurance services and consulting services related sa internal audit plan. So sa assurance services, the internal audit activity plan of the engagement must be based on the documented risk assessment undertaken at least annually. The input of the senior management and the board must be considered in this process. Ug sa consulting services pod niya, the chief audit executive should consider assessing proposed consulting engagement based on the engagement potential to improve management of risk, add value, and improve the organization's operation. Accepted engagement must be included in the plan. So ang planning process gani should include the establishment of goals nila, ilang engagement, schedule pod, staffing, schedules, and financial budget. Additionally po, ang effectiveness sa planning should reflect the internal audit charter, which is na-discuss na ako ganiha, and be consistent with the organizational objectives. The planning process should be collaborative process involving all levels of management to ensure the audit plan is understood and supported by the management. And pagkahuman sa planning, of course, kailangan ninyo na i-present ang inyong plan for communication and approval. Kailangan siya it is incumbent upon the KAI to present it to the senior management and the board, typically the audit committee, to be approved niya. So meaning, sa meeting, na requirements nga i-discuss sa implementations nga the KAI's presentations of the internal audit plan to the board usually occurs during the meeting, which may include the senior management. The proposed internal audit plan, mao ni ang kuan nga unsay dapat sulod sa internal audit plan. First is a list of proposed audit engagement and specification regarding whether the engagement are assurance or consulting in nature. Sunod is rationale for selecting each proposed engagement, for example, risk, rating, time, since last audit, change in management, and etc. Sunod is objectives and scope of each proposed engagement, and lastly, a list of initiatives or projects that result from the internal audit strategy but may not be directly related to an audit engagement. Mao nang sulod sa internal audit plan. And that's it for my report. Next is resource management by Julie.
Good day, everyone. I am Julie Rampuyon and I will be discussing to you the resource management. When implementing an internal audit functions plan, we need to consider how to allocate resources. So, it is the KAI's responsibility to ensure that internal audit resources are appropriate, sufficient, and effectively deployed to achieve the approved plan. So, the KAI may choose to employ a flat organizational structure in which most of the internal auditors have more or less the same level of skills, experience, and seniority. So, this type of organization creates an internal audit functions that is stable, highly knowledgeable, and very collaborative. And little supervision is necessary and the work performed is consistent and reliable. However, a flat organizational structure tends to result in a higher cost base due to the higher salaries necessary to retain auditors who all have a high degree of knowledge and experience. So internal audit functions that are structured hierarchically tend to be more dynamic due to the fact that positions are often rotating, which means as the people in the positions near the top of the organizational structure move up and sometimes out of the function, the people in the subordinate positions move up into the recently vacated positions. So this allows for growth within the function and leads to the cultivation of diverse skills and fresh perspective with a lower cost base. So both types of internal audit organizations, however, rely on staff members who continue to receive training and broaden their skill base. So the typical hierarchical internal audit function includes associates in a variety of positions that correlate to specific roles within the functions, which includes staff auditor or IT staff auditor, senior auditor or IT senior auditor, audit manager or IT audit manager, audit director or IT audit director, then lastly, chief audit executive. So the IIA's Global Internal Audit Competency Framework, so it is a tool that defines the competencies needed to meet the requirements of the internal Professional Practices Framework, IPPF success within the internal audit function. So, the framework provides a structured guide that assists in the identification, evaluation, and development of those competencies in an individual internal auditor. Next is right sizing. So this refers to the process of adjusting the size of a company's workforce or operations to align with its current needs and goals. So right sizing is an important concept in staffing and scheduling of an internal audit function. So it often involves reducing the workforce through layoffs or attrition, but it can also involve expanding or reorganizing certain department or function. So right sizing is usually done to improve efficiency, reduce cost, or adapt to changes in the market or business environment. So, importante yun to achieve and maintain a balance of knowledgeable and skilled staff to complete the internal audit, rather to complete the internal audit plan without putting undue stress on the staff by creating oppressive workloads. So, staffing plans and human resources. So, the CAE also must assign independent and objective human resources effectively. The CAE takes succession planning into consideration and ensures that there is a robust staff evaluation and development program in place. So, um, the CAI must ensure that internal audit team is composed of individuals who are independent and objective in their work. So this means that they are free from bias and conflicts of interest and can provide impartial assessment of the organization's operations, risk and controls. So as with other areas of managing the internal audit function, the CAI must maintain open communication with senior management and the board regarding human resources. So, this communication takes the form of regular updates during quarterly board meetings, such as audit committee meeting, summary of status, and adequacy of resources, along with metrics, goals, and objectives to monitor the overall adequacy of resources. So, hiring practices. So, the CAI is responsible for hiring associates to fill the organizational structure of the internal audit function in a way that um, maximizes efficiency, effectively provides the necessary skill base, and makes good use of financial budgets. So, um, to do this, the CAI typically tries to hire individuals with training and expertise and in a variety of areas, including financial accounting and reporting, IT, business operations, and applicable laws and regulations. So, the strategic sourcing. So, um, strategic sourcing, referred to as a co-sourcing or outsourcing. It allows the CAE to optimize both the skill base and the financial consideration related to staffing. So, this supplements the in-house internal audit function through the use of third-party vendor services and for the purposes of gaining subject matter expertise for a specific engagement or filling a gap and needed resources to complete the internal audit plan. So, what is kaning mga third-party vendors? So, third-party vendors often bring specialized skills and expertise that may not be available within the organization. So, in some cases, kanang outsourcing audit services to third-party vendors can be more cost-effective than hiring and maintaining a full-time internal audit team, especially for a smaller organizations or for conducting occasional or one-staff audits. So, kanang with the use of strategic sourcing, um, kuan siya, ma-maintain, pwede ta maka-maintain og cost-effective internal audit function by hiring permanent associates who have a broad or more generalized base of skills. while maintaining flexibility or of bringing in technical experts that are necessary for specific projects or engagement. So training and mentoring. Um, so while IIA Standard 1220 due professional care specifically points out that infallibility is not required, it is incumbent on the staff to remain current in their knowledge of the industry and audit skills. Individual internal audit functions establish minimum training and professional development requirements, which typically include professional certifications and the related minimum continued professional education required to maintain them. So, this is done primarily through ongoing training and mentoring, as well as continued professional education. So, individual internal audit functions establish minimum training and professional development requirements, which typically include professional certifications. So career planning and professional developments. So this allows each associate to develop and implement an overall plan to reach a long-term career goals while remaining a contributing member of the internal audit function. So in addition to the training and mentoring required to meet proficiency and due professional care standards, a good internal audit function will have a process in place for career development and succession planning. So, um, robust career planning and professional development process ensures the internal audit functions will continue to have qualified and capable staffing to achieve the approved audit plan and discharge its purpose, authority, and responsibility. The scheduling. So the CAE can begin assigning specific engagement and projects to the personnel best suited to perform them. So it maximizes the financial budget by creating internal audit teams based on their skills and experience. And the CAE takes into considerations the development needs of the staff and works to balance the development opportunities a specific engagement can provide to them and the need to complete engagement within the scheduled time frame. So the financial budget. So the financial budget is driven primarily by the internal audit plan, organizational structure, and staffing strategy. So the CAE must carefully evaluate the financial resources necessary to accomplish the objective set forth. So the financial budget both impacts and is impacted by each of the tasks undertaken by the CAE. The financial budget for the internal audit function is crucial as it impacts and sorry. So this financial budget determines the resources available for conducting audits, hiring staff, and implementing audit tools and technology. So the use of professional practice groups. So these are the specific activities that are typically centralized within the professional practices group include formalizing, documenting, managing the issue tracking and follow-up process, performing internal quality assurance reviews, managing requests for information from other assurance group, facilitating recruiting activities, creation and maintenance of onboarding activities, developing and delivering trainings, maintaining performance metrics on the functions activities, managing the department schedule, facilitating and documenting the risk assessment process and the creation of annual audit plan, preparing materials reporting the internal audit functions activities to senior management and the audit committee, then performing data analytics works. For policies and procedures, so the chief audit executive must establish policies and procedure to guide the internal audit activity. So, this standard indicates that the form and content of policies procedures are dependent upon the size and structure of the internal audit activity and the complexity of its work. So, um, These policies procedures help ensures that internal audit functions operates effectively, efficiently, and in accordance with professional standards. So, coordinating assurance efforts. So, IIA Standard 2050 Coordination and Reliance. The Chief Audit Executive should share information and coordinate activities with other internal and external assurance and consulting services providers to ensure proper coverage and minimize duplication of efforts. In coordinating activities, the Chief Audit Executive may rely on the work of other assurance and consulting service providers. A consistent process for the basis of reliance should be established, and the Chief Audit Executive should consider the competency, objectivity, and due professional care of the assurance and consulting service providers. So, many organizations have multiple avenues for ensuring that they operate within the risk appetite. So, organizations operating in a highly regulated environment, in particular, have a need to demonstrate that they have mitigated uh, the many risks that threaten them to a reasonable level. So in order to do this, they implement a technique of assurance layering to get the risk mitigations they need or desires. So, ang isa to ka common example kay katong three lines of defense model bitaw, which katong gi-discuss sa chapter T katong first line of defense, second line of defense, and third line of defense. So, Implementation Guide 2050 Coordination and Reliance outlines the considerations the CAE can make to determine if reliance on the independent outside auditor's work is appropriate. So, while it is important to leverage the efforts of other external and rather the internal and external assurance and consulting activities, the most common form of such collaboration is with the independent outside auditors. So, specifically, the guidance states that CAE may evaluate objectivity by considering whether the provider has or may appear to have any conflicts of interest and whether they have been disclosed. And also consider independence by examining the provider's reporting a relationship and the impact of this arrangement. So, the CAE may also confirm competency by verifying whether the provider's professional experience, qualifications, certifications, and affiliations are appropriate and current. Also, assess due professional care by examining elements of the practice the provider applies to complete the work, that is, the provider's methodology, and whether the work was appropriately planned, supervised, documented, and reviewed. And the CAE should extend the same opportunities as described above to the independent outside auditors so they, in turn, can rely on the work performed by the internal audit function. So, it is the good idea for the internal auditors and the independent outside auditors to use similar techniques, methods, and terminology. So, although DACA is responsible for the coordination between the internal audit functions and independent outside auditors, the board is responsible for oversight of that coordinations as well as the work performed by the independent outside auditors. So this means that the CAE needs to gain the board's support relative to coordinating the efforts of the internal audit functions and the independent outside auditors effectively. So um, the CAIC keeps the board apprised of the results of ongoing assessments of these coordination efforts in general in the performance of the independent outside auditors, specifically through regular communication.
Now, let's move on to reporting to the board and senior management. In accordance with the IIA Standard 2060, it is the responsibility of the Chief Audit Executive or the CAE to regularly update or report periodically to senior management on the board on the internal audit team's work. This includes explaining their purpose, authority, and what they do, as well as how well they are adhering to their plans and professional standards. Moreover, reporting must also include any significant risk and control issues, including fraud risk, governance issues, and other matters nga required ang attention sa either senior management or the board or both. These reports typically occur during routinely scheduled meetings throughout the year. If there are major changes to the internal audit plan, budget, or staffing, the KAI, the KAI needs to explain these changes and the reasons behind them. Also, if senior management decides not to address a serious problem identified, the KAI may need to inform the entire board of directors depending on the specific circumstances and any recent changes in leadership or the organization's risk profile. Additionally, management and the KAI coordinate efforts to routinely report on various risk and control activities performed by either, in accordance with roles and responsibilities set by the board and the audit committee. This typically includes reports covering business unit monitoring and risk monitoring, independent outside auditor activity reports, key financial activity reports, risk management activity reports, and legal and compliance monitoring reports. So, when a company wants to check if its internal controls are working well, they often do self-assessment. So, galok sila sa ilahang own processes to see if they are good enough. A report is typically submitted to the audit committee by either the senior management or the KAI outlining the result of self-assessment, which is performed by the management. At minimum, the internal audit function should independently assess the process that management underwent to reach its conclusions. However, sometimes the KAIS goes further. Mag-give sila sa ilahang own opinion about whether the controls are good enough, especially sa financial reporting. In more limited cases, gi-extend pagid sila sa ilahang opinions over operations, compliance, and non-financial reporting objectives. They say na parts ni sa ilahang job since they already evaluate the controls every year. However, some KAIS thinks that this creates conflict because they are supposed to be independent and neutral. So different organizations may have varied approaches to managing this process. It depends on their culture. Misalignment occurs when the internal audit function finds that internal controls are designed inadequately or operating ineffectively, and it is not enough for the guy to simply report such misalignment. Dapat po nila i-figure out how to fix it and report back on the progress. Only in very rare cases, if they can't agree with management on how to fix the problem, would they report the issue without a resolution. Governance. As defined in Chapter 1 and Chapter 3, governance is the process conducted by the Board of Directors to authorize, direct, and oversee management toward the achievement of the organization's objectives. It involves a combination of processes and structures implemented by the board to inform, direct, manage, and monitor organizational activities. For the purposes of this chapter, we will only discuss governance in terms of the internal audit function's specific responsibility. So the responsibilities of internal audit and governance in accordance with the IIA Standard 2110 is it requires the internal audit function to assess and make appropriate recommendations to improve the organization's governance processes. So the responsibilities of internal audit function includes making strategic and operational decisions, overseeing risk management and control, promoting ethics and values, ensuring organizational performance management and accountability, communicating risk and control information, and coordinating activities and communication among stakeholders. So these responsibilities are carried out largely through the assurance services provided by the internal audit function. The Internal Audit Charter defines what role the internal audit function plays in providing assurance relative to governance process and should reflect the expectations of the board. So basically, internal audit provides assurance services to fulfill governance responsibilities, such as evaluating whether the various risk management activities are designed adequately to manage risk associated with unacceptable outcomes, testing and evaluating whether the various risk management activities are operating as designed, determining whether the assertions made by the risk owners to senior management regarding the effectiveness of the risk management activities accurately reflect the current state of risk management effectiveness, determining whether the assertions made by senior management to the board regarding the effectiveness of the risk management activities provide the board with the information it desires about the current state of risk management effectiveness, evaluating whether risk tolerance information is communicated timely and effectively from the board to senior management and from senior management to the risk owners, and assessing whether there are any other risk areas that are currently not included in the governance process but should be. To carry out these responsibilities, the internal audit function must have a clear understanding of the board's governance direction and expectations, including risk tolerance levels and reporting expectations.
Risk management is defined as participatory process meticulously designed to identify, evaluate, communicate, and monitor uncertainties that could potentially impede the organization's progress toward its goals. It encompasses both the mitigation of risk and the exploitation of opportunities that arise in the course of pursuing business objectives. So, the management team implements strategic responses to address identified risks, aiming to align with the overarching risk management strategy. This involves deploying measures to mitigate the severity or potential impact of risk through a variety of response mechanisms. So, centralized risk management, typically under the guidance of senior management, often provides more effective in coordinating risk-related activities. However, decentralized risk mitigation, when delegated to areas most directly impacted by the specific risk, can enhance operational efficiency. Over time, the organization's approach to management has evolved from a narrow focus on averting potential danger to a more holistic strategy that also identifies and exploits opportunities. This strategic shift underscores the organization's commitment to managing risk within the defined risk appetite. The internal audit function plays a crucial role in evaluating the adequacy and effectiveness of the organization's risk management processes. Beyond assessment, internal audit facilitates risk identification, evaluation, and advises management on appropriate responses. It is it is imperative to delineate the respective responsibilities and limitations within the risk management framework, while internal audit significant contributes to enhancing risk management and mitigation efforts. The ultimate responsibility for decision making rests with management. Adherence to standards such as the IIA Standard 2120 Risk Management underscore the organization's commitment to robust risk management practices. This standard mandates the evaluations and continuous improvement of risk management processes to ensure organizational alignment and effective risk mitigation. So, in conclusion, effective risk management is indispensable for achieving organizational objectives and fostering resilience in the face of uncertainty. Collaboration between internal audit and management remains crucial in navigating the complexities of the dynamic business environment. Control. Control encompasses any action undertaken by management, the board, and other relevant parties to manage risk and enhance the likelihood of achieving established objectives and goals. This entails meticulous planning, organization, and direction of actions by management to provide reasonable assurance that objectives will be met. According to the IIA Standard 2130, control, the internal audit activity plays a pivotal role in assisting the organization in maintaining effective controls. This involves evaluating the effectiveness and efficiency of controls and promoting continuous improvement within the organization. In terms of providing assurance services, the internal audit function utilizes information obtained from risk assessment to guide its evaluation of the adequacy and effectiveness of control. This encompasses assessing controls across various domains, including the achievement of strategic objectives, reliability, and integrity of financial and operational information, operational effectiveness and efficiency, safeguarding of assets, and compliance with relevant laws, regulations, and contracts. Additionally, the internal audit functions identifies the objectives of the audited areas and evaluate the alignment with the overarching objectives of the organizations. Assurance engagement focus on assessing whether the control in place effectively support the achievement of these objectives, thus ensuring alignment and coherence across the organization's operations. Furthermore, the internal audit function integrates knowledge of controls gained from consulting engagement into its evaluations of the organization's control processes. This ensures a holistic and comprehensive assessment of control effectiveness and enables the internal audit functions to provide evaluation insight for improvements. In conclusion, control play a critical role in ensuring the organization's ability to achieve its objectives and goals effectively. The internal audit functions role in evaluating control effectiveness and promoting continuous improvement is paramount in these regards.
So, good morning, everyone. My name is Peter Bagistak, and I'm here to my part of the report. So, the International Standard for Professional Practice of Internal Auditing, or the IIA Standard 1321, states that uh, internal audit functions in a large and a small internal audit function may be are not the same. It would be because it would be troublesome for a large, or it would really not give a value if a independent if a independent or a team or independent reviewer or a review team will give the same impact of review to a large and a small internal audit function, or it might be very you know, very uh, troublesome, or yung cost mas malaki pa kaysa inahan niya na value. So, as a internal auditor, we don't want that. So, these are the cases where an independent team is not deemed appropriate or necessary for a small internal audit function. Be an industry subjected to extensive regulation or or supervision. Yeah, because ano, small internal audit function is not really quite big for a extensive regulation and or supervision, because yeah, it is very ano, small. Why would you have more time auditing that particular, I mean, it is just very small. Two is be otherwise subject to extensive external oversight and direction relating to governance and internal controls. So, be otherwise subject to extensive external oversight and direction relating to governance and internal controls. Third is the judgment of the CIA, the benefit of self-assessment for all staffs and strengthen and the strength quality of the internal quality assurance and improvement program currently at play the benefits the quality assessment by the external team. So that means that no, the cost of the the cost or the benefits may out the cost may outweigh the benefits. So it is really deemed necessary for a review team or independent reviewer to have is the same judgment of a internal audit function be large over the small internal audit function. So, so the standard also said that disclosure and conformance in the event that an internal audit function is found to be sufficient deficit to impact the overall scope or operation of the internal audit activity. The IA Standard 1322, disclosure of nonconformance, states that the chief audit executive must disclose the nonconformance and impact to senior management, the board. So this just means that the chief audit executive must disclose all of the impact, all of the disclosures and non-conformance of impact to the senior management of either uh, if if the chief audit ano, already found to be sufficiently deficient to impact. Yeah. So next is performance measurement by the for the function. So performance measurement are integral to the internal assessment requirement outlined in the IIA Standard 1311. The internal discussed earlier and the addition to providing the criteria against which the internal audit function judges its performance in key areas. They gauge how well the internal audit function is accomplishing its mission and goals. So yeah, the purpose of the internal audit is really to put val to add value to the organization. So um as internal audit, we should accomplish our mission also and goals. Uh, yeah, the use of technology to support the IA process. Nowadays, um, we are we humans are now reliant to technology. Um, Usually, all of our things are made out of technology. Even our clothes are made out of technology. Why can't the IA process be supported by technology? So technology is playing ever increasing role in the internal audit process. But it is important to keep in mind that technology should be enhanced. The internal audit function and activity need to divert attention away from the task of auditing. So yeah, the purpose of technology is only to ease our internal audit process, not to not to divert all of the attention to technology itself, not just by mm, uh not to give all of our tasks to the technology itself because it is very common nowadays that technology can really replace us. So three such tools have been integrated with this textbook. So Teammate is an audit management and documentation tool can be used in conjunction with exercises and cases in applicable chapters throughout the textbook. ACL and Caseware idea. Popular data analysis tools are packaged with a book so that students can become familiar with the tools used in the practice of internal audit. So these are the three tools of such internal audit process use support by technology. So risk control and self-assessment. It should be clear at this point that the internal audit function assists an organization in assessing and mitigating risks in several ways. So uh, uh, technology very help us with this because information can be already be given because of technology, and it is by by our standpoint that we could give a judgment so that it would be easy to us to mitigate the risk. So next is data analysis. If there are large amounts of data commonly referred to as big data that must be reviewed by internal auditor, in these cases, data analysis tools and techniques can be invaluable because they allow for 100% testing results and definitive results and conclusions. The data, ano, the technology really helps us by this because the data can be ano, can be provided automatically, and we can already evaluate what should we do in order to mitigate this risk. So automated monitoring tools can be better equipped an internal audit function to provide value-added services while managing its humans and financial resources in the most efficient manner possible. So, no, the best example that I could give this is that in the accounting department tools to, the salaries and wages to evaluate the salaries and wages yung, ano ba ito, yung fingerprint something to monitor the ins and outs in the department. Yeah. And also the automated working papers. The use of automated working papers by an internal audit function enhances productivity by providing a more efficient medium to document, review, store, and access information supporting audit work reform, assurance, and consulting services. So, yeah, the purpose of a drive is to ease in our superiors to access access or yeah, not only the superiors but to those important persons to access the file, review it, store it, and it is a medium now or of document to really to really have an easy way, an easy way, an easy way to to really have an easy way to um, para madali lang yung magamit. So, so this is my last slide. So the department administration and management. Most of the activities required when managing the internal audit function, including staff evaluation, tracking of time and expenses, and schedule of audit engagement can now be done electronically. Generally, the more activities that can be done with one tool, the more efficient and cost effective it is to implement. So yeah, I remember when I was reading a book from CIS that there tools informa accounting information tools can be very cost effective. Also, it can be not so very uh 50-50 lang yun or 75-25 like per se if you have a internal internal audit function that can do all of the tasks uh, in in a way that it is efficient. So you will literally have a value adding because it is very efficient. But the problem is that if you need a special tools for that to be provided, you will need additional money, additional funds. So yeah, it is not ano, it is great that we have technology that can help us that can help us. But yeah, we should really invest before we can get it to be more efficient. It's especially if there is a tool that can provide us with all the things that we need. So next is the internet. So the internet, it is a efficient way to do research, speeding up access to information that previously had to be retrieved through hard copy format. An increasing number of internal audit function use internet links to enhance the planning delivery delivery for services and gain access to work programs. Working papers, policies, procedures, and other audit tools and resources, which results in an increased efficiency and productivity. So, yeah, the internet is very, is really used all over the world. It is widely used right now. So, as an internal audit, why don't we use it to become efficient and for us to become a cost effective? So, yeah. So, in order to for us to add more value in their organization or increase efficiency and productivity, uh, the internet is one way to meet all of the requirements that an internal audit function may need. So I guess that is all for our report. So thank you guys for listening.